Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello and welcome back to Everything Possible in Dark Souls 1, and today we'll be taking on the painted world of Ariamis. But first things first, let's go ahead and take a look at our gear and our stats for today. We are wielding the Greatsword at plus 10, the Tower Shield at plus 10, and then we have the Steel Set, all at plus 6 because I didn't feel like spending any Titanite chunks. You may recognize this equipment as the equipment that the Baroniki or the Heavy Knights wear throughout Lordran. Our standard Covetous Gold Serpent Ring, Havel's Ring for the added equipment burden, and then in our hotbar we have Blooming Purple Moss Clump, and you'll see why once we get into the painting, Black Fire Bombs, which we'll also be using, Green Blossom, which I actually never used, and then the Charcoal Pine Resin. Here are my stats. I've leveled up 6 points and I put all that into Strength, the reason being the Tower Shield requires a Strength of 30 in order to wield, and I also wanted to be able to use the Greatsword in one hand. But without further ado, let's go ahead and approach this absolutely beautifully made painting, and let's examine. There is a fun little cutscene that I did skip just to go ahead and move the action along, but now we're in the painted world of Ariamis. So a couple of notes about this area. Hearing the name Painted World of Ariamis, you could assume one of two things. You could assume that this land is actually known as Ariamis, or you could actually assume that Ariamis is the painter who created this painted world. And that is actually the correct definition. We know from one of the lines of dialogue when you are defeated by Crossbreed Priscilla that Ariamis was actually the painter and creator of this world, and this is actually not the name of the land itself. Coming into this land, you have a bonfire straight away. Unfortunately, you cannot warp from this bonfire. And here we have some corpses impaled upon a pike. The painted world of Ariamis was essentially created to house abominations and things that didn't belong in the normal world. And as an invader to this world, we are not welcome here. And these bodies that are impaled, as well as some strung up bodies and even some cages that we'll see, will tell us that we should not be here. And really, we should just turn around and leave, if that were possible. Here's a strung up body that does have an item on it. You can go ahead and shoot that rope with an arrow to knock it down, or I'll show you how to get it with a melee weapon a little bit later in this episode. We have some Dreglings here that tried to stage a clever ambush. But once you get to the top of the stairs, if you just back right down, you can attract these two broken sword-wielding Dreglings and take them out at your leisure and avoid those arrows. I love the sound of their tiny little weapon hitting up against my tower shield. It's so overkill, and I love it. With him down, we do have another archer on the top of these stairs, and then once we get up there, we are soon going to be approached by a brand new enemy type. And these are engorged zombies. And these enemies have a unique property to them. Watch as I kill them up close. They explode in a mist of toxic that will build up your toxic meter very, very quickly, which is why I had the Blooming Purple Moss Clump equipped. However, if you attack them, but you finish them with any sort of fire attack, like this Black Fire Bomb, that toxic mist does not appear and you are safe to be close to the enemy. Pick up a Soul of a Proud Knight here, and we'll be seeing more of those engorged zombies, and we'll talk a little bit more about them when we see them. By the way, many of the items in the painted world of Ariamis are soul items. However, there are some unique items, unlike this broken straight sword, that can be found here, but this is an optional area. There is no reason that a player would have to come here unless there was a particular item that was only found here that you may want to get. On the corpse in this corner, we get ourselves another Soul of a Proud Knight, and you can see those crow demons sitting on top of those structures. But as soon as you approach about this point, two of them are going to fly down, and now you get to fight them for the first time. No, this is not Ornifex. Maybe they are related to Ornifex, but do not expect them to be friendly to you, so attack quickly and attack often. Once you see them crouch down, that means they are going to be doing their leaping attack, and if they land on your head, they will begin pecking you, and they will do massive damage. Even with the armor that I have on, these guys will actually take approximately 50% of my health down in one of those jumping attacks, so be careful. Speaking of being careful, carefully drop down onto this ledge so you can get yourself the Dried Finger. This item works the same way here as it does in Dark Souls 2, so what this does is that it effectively eliminates or it clears the invasion cooldown timer. Dark Souls 1 has an internal timer of 15 minutes, which means that if you are invaded, once that invader leaves or you perish, you have 15 minutes before another invader would be allowed to come into your world. If you use the dried finger, which is not a consumable, then that cooldown is eliminated and you can be invaded again and again. Coming down to the basement, we do have rats, although they are a little bit different. These are snow rats, and instead of building up your poison meter, if you get hit by these rats, it will actually begin to inflict toxin, or at least build up your toxin meter. So be careful there. You get a Soul of a Brave Warrior for coming down here. And we are going to see many more of those rats, but keep in mind that they do drop humanity. I don't necessarily suggest that this be your primary source of farming humanity, but if you're here and you want to kill them, more power to you. Inside this building, we have a number of enemies, but first I like to take out this archer, as well as the 2 dreglings that were hanging on the side, before I take on the engorged zombie. We have 2 types of engorged zombies. We've already seen both, but we have this torch-wielding type, and then you can see the pyromancer type who's casting his fireballs on the inside. But again, what I like to do is hit them once so they're weak, and then throw a black firebomb to finish them off so you don't have to worry about toxin. If you're a light character, or if you're just someone who likes his backstab, you can backstab these enemies, and typically your character will actually kick them far enough away so that the toxin mist won't be an issue. Another option would just be to shoot them at range with crossbow bolts or with arrows, throw throwing knives. Well, anything at range, really. And as you can see, with our setup now, all it takes is one-handed R1 and then a black firebomb, and they are through. Unfortunately, even though they are an enemy unique to this area, do not expect any drops. They have nothing to offer. Now be careful with this dregling, because he is apparently very tough, and he requires a backstab from a +10 greatsword in order to be defeated. Or he's a completely standard dregling, and I just did that for overkill purposes. We may never know. We have another corpse with an item on it hanging by a chain, but with one simple swing from our greatsword, we'll see that it lands in the courtyard below, and we'll be picking that up once we visit that courtyard. Back inside the house, we have 2 options. We can exit on the left, or we can continue up the stairs. But there's a couple items up here that we'll want to get. So you can come in here, and if you take a look, there's an item over there hanging on that windowsill. But in order to get it, you are going to need a running jump. And even in heavy armor, it's no big deal, as long as you jump at the last second, and you can get your Soul of a Brave Warrior. And now we were going to take out this engorged zombie now, but I guess we're going to have to wait till later. But I recommend actually not going that way, there you go, but going down this ladder, because we're going to be doing just a tiny bit of backtracking here in just a moment. You can hear some noises coming from the room next door. And in here we have 2 more snow rats. Who apparently have high agility, because this dodge is nothing short of impressive. Not to mention that poise break. They actually have a shove attack that will knock you clear out of it. But I guess you do want to have some decent enemies guarding such a unique item, because if you ever want to cosplay the Painting Guardians, now's your chance. So we got the Painting Guardian set, the hood, robe, gloves, and the waistcloth. And the Painting Guardian set is an incredibly light set of armor. At only 7.1 weight units in total, it actually has some decent magic defense for its weight, but it also has the highest poison resistance when it's fully upgraded of any armor set in the game. So if for some reason you're looking for some high poison resistance, maybe you're going to spend some time in Blighttown, then the Painting Guardian set when fully upgraded is an excellent choice. Heading back the way we came, back up the ladder, slowly back up the ladder, since the sprinting up ladders wasn't implemented until Dark Souls 2. But walk slowly through here because you can fall through the floorboards, but pick up your egg vermifuge. This is the easiest place to get your hands on a guaranteed egg vermifuge. What this does is that it removes the egg parasite from the infection that you can get caused by the egg carriers down in Quelaag's domain or the Demon Ruins, and if you trade this to Snuggly, you can also get a dragon scale for it. If you do get infected by one of the egg carriers and you don't actually have one of these egg vermifuges, then you actually can talk to, and I'm probably going to butcher this, Aingi, I believe, Aingi, who's actually just outside of Quaylag's domain, and he will actually give you a pair of egg vermifuges for free, but only if you're partway through the infection to begin with. We'll be investigating this tower later on, but first we have a bridge here with an old familiar face. We have another undead dragon, and there goes one of his wings. He's either very undead or suffering from some horrible leprosy. But once you get to this large soul of a proud knight, sometimes you can get a little bit closer. He will get up, he'll actually leave his legs behind, much like the one in the Valley of the Drakes. And he's going to stop just about here. And from here, he's going to have a few different attacks. He has his poison breath that he spews. He has a claw swipe. Or, if you're too close to his mouth, he can actually attack you just by biting you. But we're going to bait his poison breath most of the time. And what we're going to do is just run side to side, attacking his claws, occasionally attacking his head when we got the opportunity. But all you do is rinse and repeat, or if you have a lot of bows and arrows and you just want to stand back, there's absolutely nothing he can do to you once you're outside his breath range. But because this does take a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and skip to the end. Because with him down, now the bridge is clear. We do have another item out there we want to get, not to mention the dragon scale that he inevitably drops. Wow, you walk slow in this armor. But there's your dragon scale, and then just up ahead on this corpse, we have the blood shield. The blood shield is interesting for a few reasons. Number one, this will actually boost your bleed, poison, and your curse resistance by 50% by having it equipped, but this is also another one of the shield contest winners. And I think this is a very, very cool looking shield, and it's very useful. Now you can see that I've attacked the bottom half of this undead dragon to no avail. However, if you do a jumping R2, he will actually stand up, somewhat inexplicably, and this will actually give you a very large shortcut straight to the boss room. If you hop down there and just start running, then you will actually have direct access to crossbreed Priscilla very early on in the level, and you bypass about 75%. So if you're here just to talk to Priscilla, or maybe you want to get her tail cut and you want to avoid all of the other stuff, there's your opportunity. No such luck for us, as we are doing an everything possible run, so we do have to go and search out all the rest of the items. So first we're going to head into the bottom of this tower, and we have these large steel doors that we will attempt to open, but we're told that it's locked by some contraption. I guess we'll just have to wait and find out what that contraption is. And it may or may not have something to do with that statue in the middle of the courtyard surrounded by a number of phalanxes. Now, if you play Demon Souls, these next enemies should look somewhat familiar. These phalanxes guarding this statue are very similar to the ones that you would find in Boletaria Palace. They are weak to fire, and one of the other reasons I like to have black fire bombs here is that if you lob these into the crowd, you can hit a fair number of them for some decent damage. Now I'm going to show you just what a few of them can do, but then I'm just going to go ahead and two-hand my greatsword and go to town on these. It also just so happens that this is one of the best soul farming spots in Dark Souls. Once you unlock the shortcut, getting here takes just a matter of seconds. You can kill them in roughly a minute depending on the equipment you're actually using, and each phalanx will actually give you 500 soul. A typical phalanx run can be less than 90 seconds, so the soul gain per hour can be huge. Don't get excited by the color of the drop on the ground there. You're going to find out momentarily that it's really not as exciting as it looks. They can drop both the spear, but more commonly, they're going to drop large leather shields. And if you get more than one drop, you probably got two large leather shields, as is the case here. But here's that shortcut I was just speaking of. That door that didn't open from the other side does open from this side. And I would hope so, considering there's only two sides to most doors. Unless you count the top and the bottom, but I can't see how they would open that way. Anyway, we just unlocked a major shortcut back to the bonfire, and that's the route that you would take in order to farm souls from the phalanxes. Coming in here, we have a very gruesome scene. We have a number of dreglings impaled on pikes, some impaled on tall poles with crows pecking at them. We have cages that seem to have maybe been the cages that actually brought some of the abominations into this world. And we do have a few dreglings that have actually managed to stay alive, including this jerk of a torch-wielding dregling. Luckily, you can get a broken straight sword if you're super lucky. But we do have some soul items. We have a large soul of a proud knight here. Hop down here, get a good look at the cage. Then on this next corpse, we have a soul of a proud knight. And we have another soul of a proud knight. And then as we begin to make our way back, we get invited by Dark Spirit King Jeremiah, provided the boss is alive and provided you are in human form. And again, if you played Demon Souls and you made it to the Old Monk, then this enemy might look a little familiar. Yes, the head wrapping is a lot taller this time around than it was in the Custard Tornado in Demon Souls. However, this is definitely an homage to the Old Monk fight from Demon Souls. And if you don't believe me, just look up photos. Now, he was actually preparing to do a large AoE pyromancy, so you don't want to either be around him or let him get that cast off if you can help it. He does have little to no poise, so if you can get close enough to stop him from attacking, all it will take is a simple swing or two to knock him out of his animation. One rolling R1 later, King Jeremiah is dead. We get a lot of souls, over 30,000 souls for that fight. And once we retrieve the remainder of his spirit, we get another soft humanity. And we'll pick up the notched whip. Now, whips in Dark Souls 1 are not nearly as beneficial as they are in Dark Souls 2. However, the notched whip does offer bleed buildup, and like all other whips, it cannot be parried, but it also doesn't offer any critical attacks. You cannot backstab or riposte with a whip. Hiding behind this wall, we do get the Pyromancy Acid Surge, and if you are a troll in PvP, you may want to give this Pyromancy a shot. This Pyromancy actually casts an acid cloud around the user that will cause item degradation from anyone else standing in it. Now, it is not a massive amount of durability loss. However, if you time it right, and if the opponent actually has low durability to begin with, you can actually catch them off guard and break their weapon or their armor. We ran up these stairs and took a left, and as we approach this item, just be wary of the ambush here, as well as the ambush here. As soon as they land, they are vulnerable. We can pick up another Soul of a Proud Knight. As I said, lots of soul items. And now we have that first corpse that we saw at the very beginning of the level, and we'll cut that down and we'll come back to it once we loop around. Back inside the building, we have some stairs that lead down. And then go into this next room carefully. You don't want to just run off. There is a ladder for you to climb or slide down instead. But if you had fun with the bone wheel skeletons in the catacombs, you're gonna love this basement area. You can see just in that light down there, as well as right around the corner, we have some more bone wheel skeletons. Fortunately, we do have few of them here, but you are going to be facing them in some tight corridors coming up. If you have a shield with good stability, like the tower shield, you may want to have it equipped even if you're not typically a shield user. Walk slowly through this room. It is a bit dark and you can only just make them out. But if you're lucky, as I mentioned in the catacombs, you can pick up a bone wheel shield. The bone wheel shield replaces the bash or the parry animation with an actual attack that causes the bone wheel to spin, and it can actually do some decent damage once it's upgraded. It's also very good at knocking enemies out of poise. We have 3 down. We do have 3 more to go in this room. We have this one here, and unfortunately I aggroed 2 that I didn't even realize. Luckily, instead of stun locking me, he did actually get brushed to the side, so not too much of a deal. And we only have 1 more to deal with. You can see him in the light there, but first, get ourselves a Soul of a Proud Knight. And now we'll aggro him. Sidestep if you can. And then just chase him down. And this room is now clear. And before we grab that item, let's go ahead and turn this contraption cutting out the cutscene here, but this does rotate the statue in the center of the courtyard, which will actually unlock the door we saw earlier. Soul of a Brave Warrior off this corpse, and then this suspicious looking wall, just go ahead and punch it. Sometimes I can be stingy with my item durability. You can see a bone wheel skeleton down there, but first another suspicious looking wall. As long as you take your time in these corridors and you peek around corners, these bone wheel skeletons shouldn't come as much of a surprise. And they are just wide enough that if you get your shield up and you can sidestep, most of the time they will be able to roll around you. But we've come down here mostly so we can get the Annex key, which opens up another area in the painted world that we want to go to because it has some very unique items, including one of the upgrade embers. Heading around here, just around the corner, you can see him there. One of the easiest ambushes to get caught by with these bone wheel skeletons. But with him down, we can round this corner and head up some stairs. And you can see that I've equipped the Black Firebomb because we have another Engorged Zombie, but this one is unique. This Engorged Zombie is unique in not only the fact that he is entirely passive, but he also has lower HP than the other Engorged Zombies, so you don't want to actually attack him at all up close, but a single Black Firebomb will take him down. And he had on him the Pyromancy Fire Surge. This Pyromancy is a very, very cool Pyromancy in that you will shoot plumes of fire in front of you, but the best part is you can hold it down so it's almost like a flamethrower, and you can actually still run around with it as you cast. It can be very, very interesting in PvP. One last bone wheel skeleton to deal with. Take him out, and then we're going to not bother with the hallway he was down, but instead take that right so we can climb up the ladder. Turns out we were inside of a well, and the item you can see straight ahead came from the corpse that we first knocked down from the chains. And he had on him 1 humanity. Don't forget to go up these stairs because sitting here on the edge of the wall, we get ourselves another Ring of Sacrifice. If you can remember from the last time we got one of these Rings of Sacrifice very early on in the series, if you're wearing a Ring of Sacrifice when you die, you will not lose your humanity, you will not lose your souls, and you will not turn hollow. Now we're going to head out this shortcut. We're not going back to the bonfire because I really don't feel like respawning any enemies. But we do want to make sure we pick up this humanity, which is from the other corpse that we knocked down from the chains. And now we have about half of the area clear. We have the courtyard completely free of enemies and items. But before we head to the boss, we have this area on the right-hand side that was previously locked, even though we didn't actually see the door before. But since we have the Annex key, we now have free reign. And behind this door is where some of the most unique items in this area come from. Straight ahead, we have a torch-wielding Engorged Zombie. You can see some suspicious-looking boards next to us, but let's deal with this zombie first. With a single R1, back up, and a Black Firebomb later. He is no more. I don't think anyone's surprised by the fact that we can break those boards, and on the corpse at the end of this walkway, we have Velka's Rapier. Velka's Rapier is a unique thrusting weapon that actually has split physical and magic damage. It has an occult modifier. It also has a B scaling in intelligence. And unfortunately I have to splice in some footage here because back where we picked up Velka's Rapier, you can actually continue walking forward and you can drop down into this platform. Splicing this footage is what happens when you actually clear an entire area, you get ready to do post-commentary, only to realize you completely forgot an entire area. So I do apologize for that. But down here we do have some more snow rats. We have 2 in here, but there's more in each subsequent room. Take them out one at a time. They shouldn't give you too much difficulty. Unless you miss twice. And in that case, maybe they are going to get you. Twice. 3 times. Almost got toxic from a rat. And I can tell you right now, unless you are a completionist like me, or unless you are just very desperate for souls and or humanity, just skip this area. Because the only item that you're guaranteed to get is sitting over there hiding behind those barrels. We're going to go ahead and run and jump over there, so we can get ourselves another gold coin. Then again, maybe if you're a big fan of Allfather Lloyd and his talismans, if you want a coin depicting his image, you can get one here. But climbing up this ladder will spit you out on this platform, which we will see again a little bit later on. But hopefully you can put this together, because once you climb up this ladder, this enemy wouldn't be here because I would have already killed him. This will put you back into this building that has a number of Dreglings and engorged zombies. All enemies that I will actually be completely skipping, since I've already killed them in the previous recording, and we're just going to be linking back to where the other recording left off, just so you can make sure that you put the pieces together of the map in your head. Running past where we fought the undead dragon. Head back to the bottom of the tower. And then we're going to head out into the courtyard and ignore all the phalanxes that are there, since again, I've already cleared this area on the previous recording. I just had to splice this in. Deftly dodge all of their spears. Into the Annex for a second time. And once we get to the top and we get outside, now it is back to your regularly scheduled broadcast. Moving right along, sorry about that odd transition. We do have a couple of engorged zombies down there, and we want to lure them out one at a time if we can. The torch-wielding zombie is a lot more cooperative in this respect until he falls down. And then you're going to have to wait for him like I did. But you know what, if I have to suffer, there's no reason you shouldn't as well. Bait him into a couple of attacks. R1, back up, firebomb. You've seen this before, not really sure why I'm telling you how to do it, but just in case you forgot. Also, you might have just noticed that I got a free 1,000 souls there when I was attacking that engorged zombie, and that's because apparently one of the crow demons actually flew off the tower and stopped flying at some point and actually plummeted to her death. Which is fortunate for us, because normally you'll actually get attacked by 2 down here, and we're actually only going to have to fight 1. Which is fine with me, because as long as you give them a chance to recover, it's very easy to stun lock them. And I have no problems with that. But on this petrified blacksmith, we pick up our Dark Ember. The Dark Ember can be given to Andre the blacksmith in the undead parish, and he can use it to ascend any weapon you have at +5 divine into an occult weapon. And the description of the Ember actually mentions that occult weapons are used to hunt the gods, and they are effective against their following and their kin. Which gives us a good reason as to why occult works so well on Gwyn, Gwendolyn, Ornstein, and the like. Normally this engorged zombie would actually be at the top of the stairs, but it's nice to see him down here. Makes the kill a lot easier. Gonna head up these stairs, and up at the top there is a large hole, and if you take a look down inside, you may think that possibly you can survive that fall, or maybe you could even land on one of those ledges. You cannot. As soon as you step into that hole, you are doomed to die. But if you don't drop down to that hole, you can get the miracle vow of silence. And oftentimes you will be attacked by crow demons here unless you take the route that we did and you clear them out along the way. The vow of silence works very similar to profound still in Dark Souls 2, in that when you cast it, anything caught in the aura cannot cast any type of spell for 30 seconds. And here we have the black set, which is identical to the judgment set found in Dark Souls 2. And this set didn't necessarily belong to Velka herself. However, this is worn by partners who served Velka, like Oswald of Karim or Cromwell the Partner in Dark Souls 2. You can hop down here onto this landing, and hiding in the corner, if you're looking for souls, you can get another Soul of a Brave Warrior. And now we're going to see another familiar route, based on the spliced footage that we had. Because if you run down here, looking straight down, inside that doorway is where we found the Painting Guardian set. But if you run towards this area, you can make it onto this landing, and we saw this earlier when we had the splice footage. So we're going to hop back down, run up the stairs, climb up the ladder again, and then we can actually proceed and see the rest of the items. I am aware that unfortunately I didn't optimize the painted world as much as I would like to. Unfortunately, that splice footage really threw me off, but you will have to backtrack at least twice if you want to pick up everything in one run. And from here, now we're going to begin to ascend the tower, and you want to take this area very carefully, and if you have a good shield, use it. You have a number of these crow demons who will attack you on the stairs, and fortunately, even though they have wings, if you can manage to knock them off, or if they jump off on their own accord, they will often plummet all the way to the bottom, and they will die. You will get a free 1,000 souls, and it makes climbing these stairs a lot easier. But once you see one coming at you, if you can find yourselves on one of these landings, all the better. One more down, and the reason we're climbing all the way to the top is that we have an item here that is unique to the painted world of Ariamis. Shoo, crows, shoo. The red sign soapstone. The red sign soapstone works just like it does in Dark Souls 2, in that you can put a red summon sign down, which will allow players to actually invite you to invade their world. A few rules for this. You have to be human, the host has to be human, the host could not have killed the area's boss, and the way it works for your soul level is that you take your soul level, and then you subtract 10 from that and 10% of your current soul level, which means if you're soul level 100, that would give you 80, and it actually doesn't have an upper limit. In other words, if you're a soul level 1 and you have a red sign soapstone, you can theoretically invade anyone's world. Keep that in mind before you just throw that sign down all willy-nilly. As we walk down, be sure to drop down on this landing so you can get a Soul of a Brave Warrior, and then continue straight forward and you can land on the stairs with minimal fall damage. And now we're going to be heading down to the bottom of this tower. The rest of the painted world is now clear, and we're going to begin our final charge to take on Crossbreed Priscilla. We're not going to take the undead dragon-like shortcut. We are going to be heading down to the bottom of the tower, mostly so I can show you the normal route, as I did air quotes that you didn't see, but also because I noticed that there is a shiny down here that one of these crow demons dropped, and I wanted to make sure that you saw exactly what it is because you may want to farm these depending on your covenant preference. Because these enemies can drop a souvenir of reprisal, and this would be used to rank up in the Blade of the Darkmoon Covenant. If you're not a violent murderer like I am, and maybe you actually left Gwendolyn alive. If Gwendolyn's dead, these are useless to you. Completely and utterly useless. We have a few ambushes here. As you kill this archer, you can see another Dregling hiding in the alcove there. But even worse than that is that with this next archer, as you run past this area right here, and you turn around, we now have 4 Dreglings that will climb up the sides of this bridge, and they will attack. It would be much worse if there was a channeler here to buff them, but fortunately that hasn't happened. I almost thought about doing another backstab, and maybe I should have because I would have seen this coming. I almost just got my head caved in by, well, me. Or at least someone who looks a lot like me. We have another Baroniki Knight or a Heavy Knight. Not too difficult as long as you can just strafe around and avoid either most of his attacks or block most of them. And for us, we are waiting for the opportunity that he will actually stop to use an Estus Flask. Because as soon as that happens, he will be wide open for an attack in order to end his sorry life. That was really mean. I don't know if his life is sorry. It's over, but I don't know if it was sorry. And here you have a large Titanite shard. Not the best place to farm large Titanite shards. But I'm not going to stop you if that's what you're looking for. And approaching this fog gate, we do have our encounter with Crossbreed Priscilla. Not quite as sad and emotional as the Sif fight was, however, if you actually take the time to talk to her and listen to what she says, you may actually think twice about killing her. Because not only is this an optional area, this is an optional boss of the optional area. You can continue forward and run off that bridge and leave the painted world and leave Priscilla intact. Sadly, that's not really our style. And if you talk to her again, she actually has the nerve to tell you that she actually watches over a peaceful land. She's insane. But as soon as you attack her, she does go invisible, and now we have an interesting dynamic where you can find her if you look carefully in the snow. Because as you can see right there, we can actually see her footprints. Some people might actually consider this a gimmick. I find this mechanic to be very neat because it's not impossible to locate where she is, you just have to be paying attention. Speaking of paying attention, if you do take enough hits, you will actually take some massive blood loss, so be careful. But because she is half dragon, we can't expect to get an item from cutting off her tail, and sure enough, we can get Priscilla's dagger. Priscilla's dagger has the occult status attached to it, but it also has the best bleed damage tied with the life hunt sight that you can get with her soul. But with the tail cut successfully lopped off, we can actually go ahead and take care of her. I decided to use charcoal pine resin, even though she's actually weak to lightning, being a half dragon and all. But fire just seemed fitting in this snowy, cold world. But with her dead, we get the soul of Priscilla and twin humanities. But the soul of Priscilla can be consumed for 12,000 souls, fed to Fran for 15,000 souls, or it can be combined with a plus 10 scythe, halberd, or a whip to ascend it to the life hunt scythe at the giant blacksmith. Now this life hunt scythe does have the fastest bleed buildup of any weapon, but it also causes bleed buildup in the wielder. So you may want to use the blood shield, the blood bite ring, or any other blood resistant armor when you're using the life hunt scythe. But on this corpse, we have the Xanthus set. Xanthus is actually a word that means yellow. I only just learned that today. Seems pretty fitting for a very yellow set of armor. But you may recognize this. This is the armor that was actually used by King Jeremiah. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the painted world of Ariamis. We have successfully destroyed every enemy, we have found every piece of loot, and I really hope that you learned something today. If you learned something, please leave me a comment below, and if I missed something, leave that too. But as for me, I will see you next time. Oh, you also get a homeward bone when you come back to Anne Orlando.